What is up, everyone? Brandon Ferst, aka First Report, representing the First Off the Bench podcast network. Everyone comes off the bench. We are First. Welcome in to the NFL Weekly. Already week 3, we are staring down. Of course, with me, as always, is my friend and co-host Raider Jim Martinez. You can find Mr. Martinez at Raider Jim 1090. How you doing tonight, sir?
I'm doing fantastic. I mean, what's going on outside in San Diego? I'm hearing the clouds are partying and everything. I just figure Al Davis is on a rampage and he's making stuff happen on the West Coast because it's raining at my house.
Yeah, it was. I tell you, I love this city. The weather's amazing, but I think everyone needs to just kind of figure out how to drive in the rain. Look, black ice does not exist when it's 85 degrees out in the middle of a summer shower. But yeah, it definitely does complicate the freeways and all that stuff. But this is my favorite. I mean, this is my favorite type of rain when you can go, like, it's almost like refreshing because, again, it's 85 degrees. But yes, technically it is raining, very humid, but yeah, I think it's there was a tropical storm, I think, coming up from Mexico that we're just getting the remnants of. So we'll be okay over here. But yeah, as we kind of wind down summer, the showers have begun. And I don't know, it might be one of those nights where we get a lot of that thunder and lightning. We seem to get 1 or 2 of those a year. That's always a little fun for me. But it is time, of course, to focus on the task at hand, I should say. Obviously, week 3, just a few days away. Of course, we are recording on Wednesday, September 17th. So, just make sure you're checking those lines. We may have had some movement in the next few days after this. So, but before we get into the games we are going to be fully diving into, let's take a moment to look back on week 2. Unfortunately, last week I came on and I said, look, the pod is undefeated. And I was hoping that we were going to be able to carry that through. Unfortunately, not so much. Raiders do fall on Monday night, but Raider Jim, your thoughts on that and any others on the week 2 slate?
Week 2 has already, to me, week 2, this has got to be one of the strangest starts to a season and makes it kind of exciting, if you will. Now, in the NFC West game we're going to be talking about, the LA Rams and your Eagles, NFC West, tight start. You got 3 teams that are 2-0. And if you look, their offensive production, they're within just a few points of each other. But if you look at the defense, the team that stands out is the LA Rams. Their defense has played phenomenal the first 2 games. But what else has been happening around the league? Injuries galore. And we're talking big name injuries. On the Chargers side, the Chargers are going to be going into it this week, and they're going to be without Khalil Mack. They're going to be without Denzel Perriman. The Bengals are going to be no Joe Burrow for the next couple of months. I think December is what I saw as the tentative return date. J.J. McCarthy, after we were talking about week 1, hey, we finally get to see the kid come out there and play. He lasted 2 weeks. He must have been sharing a locker with Christian or McCaffrey there, because all of a sudden he's out of the game. Jaden Daniels is questionable. Noah Brown for Washington, questionable. And that might be the only thing that saves my beloved Raiders this weekend. And the only solace I can take in being a fan of the Oakland Raiders right now is I'm not a fan of the New York Giants. I'm not a fan of it was the Houston Texans. Those 2 games, absolutely the biggest choke and meltdowns I've ever seen in football. I don't know if you got to see that, what Baker Mayfield did, but being a fan of Baker Mayfield, I was all for it.
Yeah, I loved it. It was interesting because I was watching that game and I think we all knew or expected Tampa to score eventually after the Texans did their thing, whether it was a field goal or not. I think a really interesting question would be, did Tampa allow Nick Chubb to score, with, I think it was like 2 minutes and 20 seconds left.
Keep the time
it was like a 22, 24 yard, because when he's running away, The first thing I'm thinking is, wait, has anybody told him what to do? And he goes in, and again, I don't think the other part of that side of it too, the Texans had multiple fourth or whatever down or first, second, third, and fourth down and goal from inside their own 3, and they could not do it. So there was that part of it. But yeah, once Chubb went in, you looked up at the clock and you went, oh, they need a touchdown. They have all 3 timeouts and there's 2 minutes and 10 seconds left. I think we all pretty much knew, okay, Baker's going to take them down the field. Baker was incredible. He is really one of those players that, I mean, the Browns fans, I don't need to pile on, but that guy was yours. And you essentially sent him to Carolina to be a scout team defensive end. And kudos to the Buccaneers. They took a 1-year flyer on him last year and went, oh, okay, this guy can play football, and then obviously signed him up. I was maybe a little concerned, like, hey, maybe he played for that contract, but he continues to play very well. I think overall, the main thing for me, as you mentioned, it's very wide open, but I think there is a top tier. And I really do think you got 3 teams in that top tier. And you know what? If you want to put Tampa into this, fine. I'm not going to. But I think Green Bay right now has to be your number 1 team. You know, if you want to say, well, I'm not going to drop the Eagles down until they lose, fine. I disagree with you, even as an Eagles fan, but the Packers have been by far the most impressive team. Obviously, I would put the Eagles in there. And Buffalo, what Buffalo has been able to do early on, obviously 2 very different wins. One where, you know, they had to pretty much down to the last second get the touchdown, beat Lamar. And then last week, you know, taking care of business against the team that you need to take care of business against. So I think those are the 3 teams that, at least early on, have really separated themselves. I think there are going to be a lot of people that jump on Kansas City and say this and that. I don't think anybody in Kansas City should be panicking unless this weekend does not go well. Look, if they lose to the Giants, yeah, go crazy. It's going to be, but that's a big if, and we'll get to that game momentarily. But the one question I want to have for Raider Jim, and it is a little interesting because he is a Raider fan, and we've mentioned it a few times. But I think Monday was the first time it was put right in front of our face. Tom Brady and possible collusion, possible insider, whatever, because the way it looks right now, you had Tom Brady Sunday in Kansas City watching the Eagles and Chiefs go at it. And then 24 hours later, he's not in the stadium. I think a lot of us expected, we'll see him in the owner's booth. He'll be sitting next to Mark Davis, you know, blah, blah, blah. When they showed him in the coach's box with a headset on, looking like the most diabolical villain in any 90s movie you will ever see, I immediately went, whoa, hold on a second. This isn't what I expected to see. And now going forward, and the other part of this too, Fox essentially and the NFL kind of bent the rules. Last year, Tom Brady wasn't allowed in a lot of the production meetings, and Fox went, hey, he's our highest paid guy. He needs to be prepared. So the NFL said, okay, fine, we'll switch that rule up. Now, as an Eagle fan, no offense to the Raiders, I'm not too worried about it. But you look at this, he's already seen now the Chargers, now the Chiefs. He's going to be doing this next week. It's Dallas and Chicago, which is the Tom Brady game. And next week, the Raiders are going to be playing the Chicago Bears. So again, I don't want to put the tinfoil hat on before we even get into the games, but goodness gracious, it's calling to me. I'm just wondering what your thoughts are on it, Raider Jim. Brady being, so close to everything in that organization.
Yeah, this if Al was around, everybody would be saying, boy, this is Al Davis 101. He's just doing whatever the hell he wants, and he don't care, and he's daring you to come at him. This is really just a matter, it seems to me, that everybody's turning a blind eye to this, and I don't know why. Now, it does take me back to the old ESPN 30 for 30 pony excess. When they talked about, back in the 80s when they got the death penalty for all the recruiting because they were rolling up on everybody, and all of a sudden they had all these kids in. And when they interviewed Ron Myers, the coach, the one thing he said is, these other schools were doing the same thing. He says the difference was they couldn't even win. When you cheat and you can't win, you're not doing something right. And that's the thing. If the Raiders were starting to run the table, if they got down to 7-1, yeah, probably. But if they keep playing like this, I think everybody's just going to continue to put a blind eye to it, but shouldn't be allowed. It just shouldn't be allowed.
Yeah, and I've had people be like, oh, well, Jerry Jones is super involved, blah, blah, blah. But Jerry Jones isn't in production meetures for the Commanders Eagles the week before.
Right.
Like, you're right. Owners, I mean, even the Irsay daughters, I don't know their names off the top of my head, but at least one of them is on the sideline with a headset on.
Yep.
But again, if you're an owner, you can essentially do whatever you want in the realm of the legality of the NFL. I did see a very interesting kind of theory. Again, grab my tinfoil hat. This one's a little more tongue in cheek, I would say, but there were some people saying that ESPN put him on blast to, look, he's a Fox commentator, so maybe there's a little undercut in there, because the reaction was palpable when they showed it. There were a lot of people that went, whoa, I knew this was happening, but to see it, it's a little tough. And then I fully agree with you about the cheating and losing, or not losing, but cheating and not being terribly successful. It's kind of my argument with the steroid era in baseball. More than likely, probably 50-60% of players in Major League Baseball were on steroids, but we only knew like 10 of their names because the other, 95% just were average baseball players.
We're hitting the ball.
Yeah. No one cares when you're average and cheating. We only care when you're good and cheating. So I do wonder. And then the other part of it too is these coaches aren't in the dark. Next week when Ben Johnson sits down in that production meeting, he's not giving everything he would to, say, a Joe Buck and Troy Aikman, because he knows this could potentially be used against me. So I think it will course correct, but you're right. I mean, the minute the Raiders pull off maybe a little bit of an upset or something like that, I do think people will start talking a little more ferociously. But yeah, for right now, I think everyone was like, oh, he's in the booth and that's what we saw. Again, no disrespect, but Monday night was a little tough. I don't think there were too many people worried, but I do think eventually this is going to come to a head. And I don't know. Unfortunately, the NFL versus Tom Brady, that's a rivalry that spanned decades. So might be looking at round 3 coming up here very, very soon.
And one more injury, because I know we mentioned some of the. I will tell you, he was a Charger, and so I didn't like him when he was a Charger. He wants to play for Washington, but I will tell you, my heart went out to Austin Ekeler. I was watching the game. I saw him down on the ground. When they showed the replay, I looked at the person sitting on the sofa with me, and I said, that's an Achilles.
Yep. And
that's not good for this guy this late in the game, meaning this stage of his career. Yeah. And son of a gun, he is out for the season, and that's not going to be an easy one to come back from.
Yeah, I don't want to, speak out of turn for anybody, but I hope I'm wrong, but I do think that was probably the last time we saw Austin Ekeler in a regular season game. Again, he's fought injuries pretty much his entire career. I don't have his stats in front of me, but I'm pretty sure 80 to 90% of the season he's missed multiple games. And yeah, as you said, Achilles. And that's the crazy thing about sports now. You can show me a injury and I could probably tell you for the most part, maybe not MCL versus ACL or MCL, but I could tell you like, oh, that's a knee injury, or, whenever you hear non-contact injury, not good. And yeah, very, very tough for, by all accounts, a very good person as well. I've never really heard anybody say anything bad about him. And he's got a great story too. I don't know if it was like Southern Utah or, he came out of, D2, not even like FCS, like D2. So prayers up for Austin Ekeler. Hopefully we see him again next year, but it's tough one to come through at his age and his stage of his career. But with that being said, time to dive into the games this weekend. And look, this is an interesting year for the podcast because we are going to have the NFC East and the AFC West. They're kind of the bedfellows this year for those two divisions. So we're going to start to get a little bit of, mix up or, some crossings of the streams, if you will. So normally we would start with the AFC West, but the way it all kind of plays out, it's easier to start in the NFC East this time. So I will get this one started. We got the Los Angeles Raiders heading across country to face the Philadelphia Eagles. The over-under is going to be,
Rams.
What did I say?
Raiders.
Oh my goodness. Yikes. Thank you. Rams, Los Angeles Rams. This is in the 1980s, Brandon. Los Angeles Rams are heading to Philadelphia to face the Eagles. 3.5-point favorites are the Birds. The over-under is 44 in terms of the money line, plus 160 for the Rams, minus 185 for the Eagles. All right. I'm going to start with the Rams first because I got plenty on the Eagles, but the Rams have done exactly what they've needed to do. Look, they're 2-0. Maybe not the most impressive wins you will see, but I think with all things considering with the Rams and the big question marks about Matthew Stafford and in the preseason, things like that, excuse me, I think they're just fine. I also do think, I thought that the Rams were the third best team in the NFC behind the Eagles and the Packers. I think that can still very well come true, but Raider Jim, you alluded to it in our week 2 thoughts. That NFC West might be a gauntlet. It's going to be very difficult to get through that division unscathed. So I think the Rams look good. I've been, always a big fan of Sean McVay and what they can put together. On the Eagles side of things, obviously, look, the Eagles are 2-0. They get a field goal victory over the Chiefs. And all anybody wants to talk about, which is fine. I really don't care because, again, read the hat. I'm a defending Super Bowl champ. Peasants' opinions don't matter to me. But a lot of talk about yardage and how many touchdowns this person has thrown or how many catches this guy has. Look, at the end of the day, the Eagles are 2-0. Maybe not the most impressive offensive performances, but I also do think that's a positive. If you can beat, I think the Cowboys are going to be better than expected. Where they end up in the grade, blah, 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 that's up for debate. I think the Chiefs are one of the best teams in the AFC. So, it's not like we took down the Panthers and the Saints back-to-backs and we struggled with them. So I do think there is something with that. Not playing your best game and still getting a win, that used to matter. But, again, it's Philadelphia. I get it. We're not the nicest people in the world, so I understand. But with that being said, I do think this is going to be a very difficult game for the Eagles. I'm going to take the Rams plus 3.5. Look, 3.5 point spread for me. It's really hard to get me to give the points away. So I'm going to take the points here. I like the Rams plus 3.5. Wouldn't be surprised to see a money line come through. I think the Rams have the type of personnel. They're very familiar with the Eagles. This was a team that was 1 or 2 throws away from eliminating the Eagles last year. Who knows? If that game isn't a snow game, maybe the Rams beat the Eagles. And we're talking about something very different right now. I like the Rams in this one. I think the Eagles still going to take a couple weeks to figure all this offensive stuff out. I'm not worried about it. In terms of the over-under, I'm going to take the under. Again, I understand the offense has struggled, but we're 2-0, and this is an offense that doesn't need to air it out. This isn't an experimental offense. This isn't a wildcat like, oh, will it work? This offense won the Super Bowl last year. So I'm not worried about it. We do have a new play caller. But again, I think it is going to take some time to fully get rolling, which is fine. You don't want to be playing your best football in September. I'm not panicking. I don't think a whole lot of Eagles fans are in general, but give me the Rams plus 3.5 under 44. I got this as like a 20-17 game for the Eagles. Raider Jim, your thoughts? Rams at Eagles.
Yeah, everybody's 2-0. Somebody comes out with a loss after this one, and it's too bad. Now, here's what I think is going to be the big difference in this one. One of the differences will be that Rams defense. The Rams defense is solid, and they are going to come out and they're going to play a solid game again against Philadelphia. But the difference is going to be on the other side of the ball, and that's going to be on Jalen Hurts' legs, because he gives them the dimension of he can get lucky and throw it down the field and hit somebody. But he runs. He can run. He's got a lot of yardage already, just 2 games. The Rams don't have that. So it's going to be, I don't want to say it's easier to defend against the Rams. That just sounds silly to say that. But I think the mobility in the quarterback position for Philadelphia is going to be the difference. Same time saying that, I don't think that they're going to put points on the board, but they're not going to win this one. They're not going to cover this one, or they might win this one. But give me the Rams plus 4 on this one. I can see this one being 28-24 real easy, and I'm going to take the over as well.
Yeah, it's going to be a very, again,
nice
this is a
good game.
Yeah, great game. Again, Fox, I think, puts their quote unquote America's game of the week, like before the season, essentially. And it is a 10 a.m. game for us on the West Coast. But yeah, I really think this is probably outside of our Monday night game. I think this is the best game of the weekend. Really excited to see where the Eagles kind of stack up against a true contender in the NFC. And again, I think the Rams look around in that division and go, we got to get as many wins as possible out of this division because it's going to be tough. But with that being said, moving on to the other side of the NFC East. And I'll tell you what, folks, before I put this stuff together, I always kind of do a little bit of like Brandon, the odds maker. I put my hat on. And for the most part, I'm maybe a point or two off or this or that. I don't know what happened here, but the Vegas odds makers have decided they are going to give me the biggest trap game I've ever seen in my life. It is going to be the Dallas Cowboys heading to Chicago to face the Bears. And the Bears are 1-point favorites, minus 110 for both teams on the line. Over under is 50. A little behind the scenes here on our rundown sheet. I'm not going to say exactly what I put, but essentially I was asking in a rather vulgar way, what is going on? But yeah, I have this. I have my sheet right here. I have this as Dallas as 4.5-point favorites. And I even took into account this game is in Chicago, but the odds makers do believe Chicago is the favorite in this one. I don't know what is going on with the odds makers on this one. The only thing I can think of is, again, this is an Admiral Akbar. It's a trap game because everything points to Dallas in this one. Dallas has really played much better than I think a lot of people expected. The defense is going to be an issue, especially late in the season. But I don't think the Bears are an offense that can really take advantage of that. I like Roma Dunze. I like the wide receivers, but Caleb Williams, I like the footwork, but it's too much footwork. Way too much happy feet in the pocket. He gets through his first read, can't get to his second, and is immediately looking for the run. Now, Jalen Hurts had the same issue early on in his career as well. He was obviously able to get through that. It's going to be more than likely a Cowboys win. But again, the gambler in me looks at this and goes, what? Why? What is going on? What do they know that I don't? It almost makes me want to just go Chicago money line because I'm like, Vegas is tempting me right now, but I'm not going to bite at the forbidden fruit, but honestly, I can't, if I'm not doing my job on this podcast, if I'm just going at it with gambler's brain and, oh my God, everything's a trap. Give me Dallas on the money line. Again, when this game goes off, I don't know if it'll still have this same line, but as of yesterday, I'm going to put this all together, and I triple checked. But give me Dallas on the money line, and I'm going to take the over. I think we got two really bad defenses. And again, I said Chicago might not have the offense to take fully advantage of the Cowboys' deficiencies, but I do think they'll be able to put up 17, 21 points. I could see this one being 31-24. 31-21 in that range, kind of one of those backdoor, oh, they made it close, but it really never was. But again, this game, the alarm bells are going crazy in my head right now. But Raider Jim, your thoughts, Dallas at Chicago.
Yeah, it all starts with the weather. It's going to be 80 degrees at game time with a 33% chance of showers. So add to that, the field's going to be nasty. The ball's going to be wet. You sent this, and I looked at it, and I said, oh, this just can't be. I don't know how they came up with this line myself. Dallas is even when you look at their points for, points against. They're pretty much even. But when you look at the Bears side of it, there's like a minus 34-point difference between points for, points against. They have given up 79 points in 2 games. Dak Prescott is going to have a field day. I see them rolling up 40, no problem. And that's how they're going to go over, because I don't think Chicago is going to get more than 17 on this one. Maybe they'll hit 20, but I'm with you. This is going to be way over 50 unless it gets torrential downpours. But give me Dallas all day long on this one. And Chicago just doesn't have it. They've lost at home. They've lost on the road. They're just giving up way too many points. And Dallas has been proving they can put the points up if they have to.
Yeah, this is
the kicker. I wanted to make sure I mentioned the kicker and the 64-yard shot that he hit the other night. I was just beside myself. I thought that was so exciting.
There's not even really any drama with his kicks either. It's like he comes out and it's 3 seconds left or whatever. And you're like, oh, it's to tie the game. Like, oh, it's 64 yards. Oh, but it's Brandon Aubrey. I mean, it's incredible. Even his overtime winner was only like 45. Like at that point, just put the points on the board. Everyone goes home. Those offensive linemen don't need the extra push. Like he's going to make it. But yeah, very, very interesting to see there. And obviously, Chicago, it is the Windy City. We'll see how that goes outdoors. But again, I don't think this is going to be particularly close. But again, the only reason I am worried about this is because Vegas has just, again, made this such an obvious trap. So we shall see. Moving on.
About the Dallas kicker that I heard that I just loved. He had taken a job as a software engineer. He's sitting on home one weekend watching football, and they see somebody miss a field goal, and his wife looked at him and said, you could miss it like that. And that sparked him, and that's what got him up off the sofa, start working his leg again. The rest is history. That was Kurt Warner stuff right there, and I just loved it.
100%. Yeah, Kurt Warner. What a made for TV movie that was, or story that was. Yeah, Brandon Aubrey. I mean, he might be one of the best offensive players on the Cowboys. Once you get into your own or into the opponent's territory, you're pretty much in field goal range, especially playing indoors, 8 or 9 times a year. So very interesting there, but yeah, that line, scary. But moving on, this is where we're going to start getting a little bit of that AFC West, NFC East mix going. We're going to be going with the Las Vegas Raiders at the Washington Commanders. The Commanders are going to be 3.5-point favorites. The over-under is 44. Vegas is going to be plus 165 on the money line. Washington minus 195. Nobody talks Raider football on this pod before Raider Jim. So, Mr. Martinez, the floor is yours.
Yeah, going into this game, I'll get to the Raiders in a minute, but going into this game, it's all going to come down to, it's like when we talk about the horses and things like that. This is going to come down to game time or maybe, Friday when they make the final announcements. If Jaden Daniels plays, Washington wins. Washington covers the 3.5. If Noah Brown plays, same thing, because they're both just questionable right now. However, if they don't play, if Jaden Daniels does not play, then the Raiders have a legitimate chance to cover at +4. That said, keep your eye on what they say about the personnel. Now, here's the other thing, though. Here we go. 10% chance of rain in Washington at game time. But the Las Vegas Raiders have a number 1 draft pick who it's going to take him 3 games to reach 100 yards as a number 1 draft pick at the running back position. Part of the reason for that, I watched how they played the first 2 games. I saw some good highlights. And you know what? If you don't own the box, if you don't control the box, the only way you can go is outside. And if you can't get blocking outside, then guess what? Your back ain't going to do nothing. He is good. He's got the potential. But wow, you got to open doors for this kid, or he's not going to be, he's not Saquon Barkley by any means. And I was thinking, getting ready to put something on X later on. I was in the stands when I saw Marshall Faulk come out and make his debut carries for the Aztecs many, many years Marshall was a different kind of a guy when he ran. He did have the cuts. He had the jukes. He had all that good stuff. But Marshall could go straight ahead and just keep going. I'm not seeing that coming out of Ashton Jeanty yet, but I'm sure it'll get there. Had a friend of mine who's not even a Raider fan say, stick with him. He's going to be fine. He's going to be fine. Well, you know what? There's been too many number 1 picks that haven't produced for the Raiders for the last 20-something years. So the fuse on my patience is a little low. The offensive line is not controlling anything. Geno Smith, the analogy I gave one friend, I said, he looked like Pac-Man being chased by those things on the screen. You know, they're all in a line behind him, just chomping at his ass, and he's trying to just get away. But that first play of the game told you what the theme was going to be. When he threw that interception, and thank goodness that, it didn't end up mattering that they held him to 3, but to give up 3 points inside 90 seconds at home, your home opener, that's a recipe for disaster right there. So I'm going to go ahead and assume that everything's going to play out like I'm saying. Give me the Raiders +4, but I don't think they're going to win. 44, I'll buy a point the other side. I'll say over 43. But this could just be as ugly as the last 2 weeks.
Yeah, the one positive I will say about what the Raiders kind of have coming for them, the Commanders' defense is not very good. Now it's kind of similar to what we talked about with the Bears. Are they good enough, or is the Raiders offense good enough to make the Washington Commanders defensive inefficiencies matter? And I agree with your friend. Again, not a Raider fan. I think Ashton Jeanty is going to be just fine, but you're right. He is not Saquon Barkley. He is not a Derrick Henry who can just run. He can run people over, but he can't run everybody over. You get him in space with a corner or a secondary safety, something like that, probably going to get it done. But he ain't running through a D lineman or many linebackers. I think the biggest issue for him is going to be twofold. Obviously, the offensive line, and the passing game needs to be somewhat of a threat. Because you mentioned the box, and all you really got to do, if you can play single coverage on everyone and stack the box, and when Geno drops back, you can get pressure. And as you mentioned, the little Pac-Man, he's freaking out. Oh my gosh, I've got to find the big dot to turn these guys into ghosts. He's running around looking for that. My biggest concern for the Raiders is, I don't know, preparation is the right term, because obviously, look, I'm a huge Pete Carroll guy, but I was a little alarmed the last pass, or one of the last passes, for Geno Smith. Look, he's been in the league for 10, 12 years, whatever it is. It's 4th and whatever. You can't throw the ball away. Yeah. Again, like arm punt, like I know you've already thrown, or at that point he had already thrown 3 interceptions. I get it. I understand you don't want to but it looks so much worse just throwing the ball away. And again, I don't know if that's just in the moment he just forgot, or if the coaching staff isn't fully going through like, okay, Gino, you got to stay, you got to get rid of the ball, and we got to give ourselves a chance. I think the Raiders are in a little bit of trouble, but I'm kind of pulling back a little bit. I don't want to overreact. I want to see what the Raiders offense can do against a lackluster Commanders defense. And I'm hoping that Brock Bowers can get healthy, because if that knee is going to be an issue all season, that's going to be a big issue for this team. He is by far their best offensive player. And if he can't get healthy or stay healthy, it's going to be an issue. And that's really going to help Ashton Genty as well, opening up the pass game. I like the Commanders in this one. And again, this is all based on Jaden Daniels playing. I'm just going to go with that assumption. Marcus Mariota is the backup for the Commanders. Obviously a veteran. The one positive I will say of that, you don't really have to change the offense too much for Marcus Mariota. Obviously not going to be the same type of athlete that Jaden Daniels was, but he can still run, the quasi read options or RPOs, things like that. I am going to go under here. I know the Commanders defense isn't very good. Same with the Raiders, but until I see, a semblance of an offense from the Raiders, I'm going to stay under this. I got this as a 21-17, 21-14 type game. I think the Commanders get the job done. This is going to be interesting. I really do want to see, not just because I'm an Eagles fan and I want to see the NFC East lose, but I want to see the Raiders come out and maybe prove to a lot of us that, we weren't at our best on Monday night, but we're better than what they showed. But I got to see it first. So give me Washington -3.5, and the under 44. Moving on to the Sunday night football game. And wow, if there was ever a time to flex something, this is the time. I know we're not allowed to flex things until like week 8, but we might need to reassess that, or we got to get the Giants off of prime time. But anyways, the Kansas City Chiefs are heading to the Meadowlands to face the Giants. The Chiefs are going to be 6-point favorites. The over-under here is 45 on the money line side of things. Kansas City -275, and the Giants +225. Raider Jim, your thoughts? Chiefs heading across country to face the Giants.
If I'm a Chiefs fan, I'm concerned. I mean, starting out 0-2, and you get Raider fans, you get used to it. Maybe we'll win one to start the first 2 games. Maybe we'll lose both. Somewhere along the way, we're going to get 3 or 4 wins. When you're the Kansas City Chiefs, it doesn't taste well to start out 0-2. They're going up against the New York Giants. Now, no way I would have sat here in July and said, when Kansas City plays the Giants, what's going to happen? They're going to go into that game underscoring the Giants by 5 points over the first 2 games. No way I would have said that, but that's the case. Kansas City hasn't even put up 40 points yet. Giants have put up just over 40 points. Defensively, they're about the same, but the Giant defense is actually a little bit worse than Kansas City's. However, based on what I saw, even though they tanked, even though they choked and lost that game against the Cowboys, better watch out, because Russell Wilson still has some tricks up his sleeve, and they're going to come out. This is one of those games, people, where it's like, this may be our biggest win of the season, our first win in a long time. Let's just go all out. Let's just do what we can, pull out all the stops. I get the Giants covering on this one. Cover, give me an extra point. Giants +6 on the over-under. I'm going to go ahead, 5% chance of rain, which isn't bad, but I'm going to take the under on this one too, because I just don't see it being a shootout. Might go a half point on that and go 45.5. Kansas City's just not looking good at all. They still have a couple injuries. I don't know. And there's just some of the guys, they just seem to be off a step. They're not at 100%. They need to get a little more swift out there, if you know what I'm saying.
Yeah, I was just going to say, I was just going to tell them, look, Chiefs fans, shake it off. It's no big deal. Anyways, yeah, we're getting those in. It's football season, folks. But yeah, this is a interesting matchup. Again, I don't know. I would love to be in the scheduling or whatever. Who put their hand up and went week 3? I mean,
Sunday
even
night.
Yeah, Rams, Philadelphia. Like, I mean, like, what was expected from the Giants? I expected them to be better, but I don't think any of us expected them to be here. And it's kind of like the monkey's paw thing. I saw a lot of memes out there of, like, you know, Giants and Titans fans saying, we just want to have the same record as the Chiefs after 2 weeks. Well, you got it. The unfortunate part is it's 0-2. But I think the Chiefs will get the job done. Their offense is not good at the moment, but I think we all know Patrick Mahomes more than likely will figure it out. I don't know if he's going to get back to the MVP level we saw a few years ago or this or that, but this is still a guy that if he's down 3 with 2 minutes left, you're holding your breath and you're expecting him to take them right down the field. Now, I do need to bring up Travis Kelce because I don't want to say he cost the game against the Eagles, but I mean, he catches that ball, the Chiefs win. Period. I mean, there are other things maybe that go on down the line, but that was a terrible drop. And even week 1, again, I don't really know whose fault it was, but somebody was running a drag route when they probably should have been running an over route. And Travis Kelce just shoulder checked the you-know-what out of Xavier Worthy. As a hockey fan, that might be 2 minutes roughing on the ice, but a little bit of friendly fire there. That's really hurt them because they are not able. Hollywood Brown had a good, okay game against the Chargers week 1. But with all that being said, I think the Giants are one step above a dumpster fire. Russell Wilson is probably keeping that from being a dumpster fire, but he's very close to being engulfed by those flames as well. They looked better offensively last week.
Yes, they did.
But again, I think a lot of that is the Cowboys defense. I think the Chiefs defense is better than the Cowboys defense, and I think they're going to make life hell on Russell Wilson. 6 points is a lot. I'm going to buy a half a point. Give me Kansas City -5.5. I can't put money on Russell Wilson and that Giants team against a 0-2 Chiefs team that know they cannot go 0-3. It is, if they lose this game, it will be bad blood. Okay, that was my last Taylor Swift pun, I promise. Anyways, but it will be an issue for the Chiefs if they lose this game. I just really think this is a massive must win for them. And the Giants are just kind of trying to tread water. And I'm going to also take the under 45. I think the Chiefs defense holds the Giants to 10, maybe 13 points, 24-13. We can go all the way up to 31-13. I'm still cashing my under. So give me under 45, Kansas City -5.5. Again, Sunday Night Football. Moving on to maybe the kind of most underrated game of the weekend in my mind. You have the Denver Broncos +130 on the money line heading to Los Angeles to face the Chargers. Chargers are going to be 3-point favorites. Over under is 45.5 and -150 for the Chargers on the money line. And look, we're one leverage call away from this being 2-0 versus 2-0. Obviously, that's not the case. Leverage does exist. Whether you agree with the rule or not, even Sean Payton came out and said, look, we messed up. That was on us. It is what it is, but it's still a rough way to lose. But Raider Jim, your thoughts, Broncos heading to the Chargers.
Yeah, like I said, we have Khalil Mack, questionable. I don't think he's going to play.
He's out.
He's out.
He has been placed on IR today, but the injury was not near as bad as expected. There were a lot of people who said he broke his arm. It's a dislocated elbow, and I believe 5 to 6 weeks, which again, compared to the people were saying he was out the entire year.
Yeah.
Probably best case scenario. I mean, best case scenario is no injury, but placed on IR. I think week 7 or 8 is when he'll be eligible, but definitely out for the foreseeable future.
You know, though, they have the hockey mentality, it seems like, on the Chargers, where they're going to be able to shuffle people in and out, even if he was playing starting full time. They just have the bodies right now. The defense for the Chargers is legit, and that's what's going to keep them in this game. Denver offense, they're right there with scoring the first 2 games. I think they've actually scored 1 more point than the Chargers. So we're going to see what happens against this Charger defense. It's going to be a tough one. It's going to be a tight one. But I think when all is said and done, give me a half a point. Give me the Chargers minus 2.5 on this one. I think it's going to go down to the last minute. And give me the under on this one, 45.5. I don't think it's going to be a shootout.
Yeah, I think the Broncos offense, it's kind of like, I don't know if you ever heard or had a car that has like a kind of an old or faulty power steering belt. You start it up and it screams for like 30 seconds. And people are looking at you funny, and you're just like, eventually it'll stop. Just don't worry. The car will drive. Like, I know it sounds bad. Sorry to all my neighbors at 4 a.m, but it's going to stop eventually. It's kind of how I feel with Denver's offense. Eventually they're going to get rolling. Sean Payton, Bo Nix, I think they're both good enough to get things under control. But you mentioned it, as beautiful as that throw was from Justin Herbert and what you've seen out of Justin Herbert, both through the air and mainly on the ground. He is kind of turning into a sneaky dual threat quarterback. You might need to start spying this guy. But I think the Chargers defense is right behind the Packers as the best defense in all of football. Obviously the Khalil Mack injury does hurt. But on the opposite side of that, and I apologize to all my Samoan fans out there, I'm not very good with those names. Tulu, he played at USC. You don't even want me to try his first name, but he's kind of the opposite of Mac on that edge. I'd really like him. My only question is, how's he going to kind of deal with now? Maybe he gets the double teams rather than Mac. Was he getting a lot of those sacks because Mac was getting so much attention? But at the end of the day, I'm riding with you. I mean, this is the same thing, right? 3-point spread. Brandon's going to buy a half a point. It's just a matter of there's a plus or a minus on the side of it. Give me the Chargers minus 2.5. I can very easily see Dicker, the kicker, coming out, kicking a field goal, giving the Chargers a 20-17 win. I feel like that's the third game I've said is going to finish 20-17. I don't know. But so give me the Chargers minus 2.5 and under the 45.5. I think you got 2 really good defenses. And even though the Chargers offense seems to have made bigger strides, there is an elephant in that offensive room. And it's not a negative one. Well, it is, but it's not, it's teachable. And unfortunately, Omario Hampton has made 2 rookie mistakes back-to-back weeks. We saw it week 1 where he ran out of bounds towards the end of the first half, gave Kansas City an opportunity to kick a field goal. And then last week, again, it didn't matter. Neither of them technically mattered, but that late fumble when it's like, okay, we just got to take 4 or 5 minutes off the clock. And then boom, he fumbles. That's something eventually, I don't know when, but if that continues, that will cost the Chargers a game down the road. I don't think it's this one, though. Give me the Chargers minus 2.5 under 45.5. Moving on to what I believe to be the game of the week. It is Monday Night Football. You got the Detroit Lions at the Baltimore Ravens, and it looks like I did not write the Detroit money line down, so you'll have to look that one up there yourselves, everyone. But Baltimore is going to be 4.5-point favorites. The over-under is 52. Let's go. Cannot wait for this one. Raider Jim, your thoughts. Lions at Ravens.
Boy, this is going to be a barn burner, I think. Believe it or not, I'm going to look at that 52 points and I'm going to question it a little bit. I have a little bit of question in my mind because both the defenses are fair. Now, offensively, Baltimore's just lights out right now. That's their game. They score. They're probably going to score again, but Detroit's defense isn't as bad as everybody thought it was going to be. Detroit's going to play tough. Do we still see 35-28 out of this one? Possibly, and that takes us definitely over the over-under. As I talk aloud like that, then I'm going to buy a half a point on the over-under. I'm going to take 51.5. But on the overall, I think the Detroit defense is going to have the scheme to slow down Lamar just a little bit and just enough. Give me a half a point on that side too. Give me Detroit +5 on this one because I think the Detroit offense is going to come out and put some points on the board. They've already gotten close to 70. I know Baltimore, I think, is over 80 right now. But this is going to be a nice game to watch. Good Monday Night Football matchup. But give me the Detroit to cover +5 and give me the over 52 on this one. Also, 10% chance of rain on Monday night in Baltimore.
Gotcha. Yeah, that's I like that. I think Detroit week 1, I might have been in this camp a bit, but there were a lot of people who were saying, "Oh wow, did Dan Campbell just lose his coordinators and now the Lions are going to go back to being the Lions?" Again, like I'm not going to lie and say I didn't have that thought. But yeah, a nice get right game against the Bears. I think the Lions are going to be just fine. I think this is an offense that knows exactly what they need to do. And the defense is healthy for the most part. Obviously, it's what a lot of people forget about last year. Towards the end of the year, it's not that the Lions had a bad defense. It's just that they were essentially a skeleton crew by the end of the year. Then, of course, we did see what happened in that divisional round against Jaden Daniels. And that's my only real concern on this one is Detroit does struggle against mobile, dual threat, whatever you want to call, the Lamar Jacksons, the Jaden Daniels, and trust me, everyone struggles with Lamar Jackson. But Lamar Jackson is the quintessential, he is the platinum example of a dual threat quarterback. The reason I am going to go with Detroit, though, I think, I'm going to go Detroit +4.5, not on the money line, but +4.5. Baltimore's end of game decisions, thought processes has been a concern, not just week 1. I know week 1, you could have gone for it 4th here. That's fine. You can have that conversation. But going back 3 or 4 years, Baltimore has had a lot of situations where they have let games, what do they say, grasp defeat from the jaws of victory. That's kind of been the Ravens over the past few years. I think we might have something like that. Maybe John Harbaugh makes maybe a head-scratching decision and we get a backdoor cover. But I do like Detroit +4.5. And I'm going to go with the over. This is kind of maybe self-fulfilling prophecy. I want to see this game be a shootout. I think Monday Night Football, it needs to be the game of the week. We all get through the weekend. We've had the weekend off. We've had 12 hours of college football on Saturday, 10 hours of football on Sunday. Go through an entire day of work on Monday. Give me something good. I really wanted this one to be good, and I think it's going to be. Give me the over. I would love to see, as you mentioned, like a 42-35. I don't think we're getting that high, but I do think we are going to go over 52. Again, Monday Night Football. Cannot wait for that. Moving on to a NFC West matchup. We talked about that division earlier. It's going to be a game that's going to go a long way in figuring things out. It is the Arizona Cardinals +115 on the money line. They are heading to San Francisco to face the 49ers. The Niners are going to be 2-point favorites. 44.5 is the over-under, -135 on the money line. I believe we are still going to be seeing Mac Jones from the Niners. Brock Purdy, I believe, will be out another week, so keep that in mind. Raider Jim, your thoughts, Cardinals at Niners.
Boy, this is about as even as it gets. If you look at the win-loss column, if you look at the points for, points against columns, This is going to be a tight game in San Francisco with a very small chance, but there could be some showers headed that way. So we'll see what happens. Arizona's offense, I think, is going to come out. They aren't the fired up offense that we saw the last few years. They're putting points on the board just enough to win. The defense is keeping them in the game. Same with San Francisco, but San Francisco is kind of like the walking wounded right now. However, Mac Jones, I think he's going to have a solid game at home. That's going to be the difference in this one. I like San Francisco money line on this one. The over-under at 45.5. Boy, a couple of years ago, I would have said there's no way it's going to go way over. But the way the production for both teams right now, give me a half a point and give me under 45 on this one.
Yeah, this is interesting because I really do believe Kyle Shanahan could probably figure something out with any quarterback he has back there. And Mac Jones he's below average. There's no doubt about that. He's a fringe starter if you want to go there. But I think the one thing with the Niners is they have so many pieces that they can, essentially divvy up to, whether it's Pearsall or obviously Christian McCaffrey. And we're halfway through the week. I haven't seen any calf issues or anything like that from Christian McCaffrey. But again, it is Wednesday. Plenty of time, unfortunately, for that to go down. I really like Arizona in this one. Kyler Murray is still, I could make all the Call of Duty jokes. I could do stuff like that, but I really have, at the very least, I've seen progression from Kyler Murray. Like 2 or 3 years ago when he was, I think it was maybe his second year, he was borderline MVP or very, very close. The Cardinals looked like, oh my gosh, here they come. And he regressed heavily. It seems like he's back on track. And I don't know. I really like what the Cardinals are building. I like the Cardinals on the money line here, plus 115. In terms of the over-under, I like the under. I do think if the Cardinals are going to win this game, you got to need to keep it under. Don't let this turn into a shootout, even though it is Mac Jones driving that ship. You got Christian McCaffrey and Ricky Pearsall and a really good offensive line also chugging along as well. So I do like the under 44.5. Again, 23-21. I almost did 24-21, but no, 23-21. Something like that. Very, very close game. And this is going to go a long way in figuring out, kind of separating the teams in the NFC West going forward. And one thing that I wanted to bring up on the Charger game, something also to keep in mind, something I'm very aware of as a former Charger fan, that's not going to be a home field advantage for them. Besides the location, besides the banners, besides the painting on the ground, there will be more Broncos fans than Charger fans. So something to keep in mind. Anyways, final game we are going to be talking about today in depth. It is my opportunity to talk about the return of the man, the myth, the Bison. Carson Wentz is going to be gracing our screens this weekend. Oh, I love it. Everyone else is rolling their eyes. I am grabbing popcorn. I cannot wait. Anyways, it is the Cincinnati Bengals with Jake Browning going there. The Bengals on the road heading to Minnesota to face the Vikings. Vikings are going to be 3-point favorites. Over under is 42. Money line side of things, Cincinnati plus 140, minus 165 for Minnesota. Raider Jim, your thoughts on Bengals at Vikings?
And on the other side of the coin, you got the schedulers who thought they were lining up a great game on week 3. Joe Burrow against the flashy kid. He's finally there. He's going to be under center. Wow, watch out. We're going to have lots of points on the board. Well, not so much. Look at what that is now. The over-under on this is 42, and I don't know that they're going to hit 42. But Minnesota being at home, and they've got experience back there under the center, I think that's going to be just enough to get them over the edge on this one. Cincinnati, I think, has to be in some form of shell-shocked, losing their leader like they did. How many times has he been the only one that's kept them into games and putting all the points on the board and just hoping he can get enough lead so that the defense doesn't give up the game? But wow, now it's just like all hands should be on deck in Cincinnati. I like Minnesota to cover on this one. I'll go ahead and take the 0.5 point just to be safe. Give me Minnesota 2.5. I wouldn't take it all the way to money line. And again, I'll take a 0.5 point. Give me 42.5 and under on this one.
Yeah, I'm riding both of those as well. Obviously, a -3 spread, some points getting bought from me, and yeah, -2.5 for Minnesota makes sense. And I think a lot of it, what it comes down to, obviously, both of these teams backup quarterbacks. But the biggest thing for me, and I do like Zach Taylor, but Kevin O'Connell is an elite coach. He can turn pretty much anyone into a average to above average quarterback. And also, too, for all my Eagles fans, if you have any ill will towards Carson Wentz, go eat a cheesesteak and walk through Wawa. What are you doing? He was the reason we had the number 1 seed. As great as Nick Foles was in those 2 games, he wasn't great before that. And we also traded Carson Wentz and ended up getting like Jordan Davis and out of that trade. So again, you can understand that we're better off with Jalen Hurts, but every Eagle fan should have a nice part in their heart of thanks for Carson Wentz. But yeah, I think this is going to be a under as well. I think it's going to be a defensive battle. I think Cincinnati's defense is probably a little better than a lot of people are giving them credit for. And Jake Browning as well. Look, he's not a inept quarterback. And if you're a Bengals quarterback or backup quarterback, unfortunately, lately, you've had a lot of starting experience because Burrow they cannot protect Joe Burrow. I don't want to say Burrow can't stay healthy. I'm going to say they cannot protect Joe Burrow. I think there's a difference there. But I also do think for Jake Browning, this is a huge game for him because if he doesn't come out and look somewhat competent, the Giants are getting a call about Jameis Winston. The Falcons are getting a call about Kirk Cousins. But I will say Kirk Cousins, I don't think is going to happen. Remember our old friend Craig Mizrak from the Great Friends Sports Network, big Bengals fan. The one thing he instilled into my mind is how cheap this franchise is. They are not going to go trade for Kirk Cousins and have to pay him whatever that is. I mean, they're the only team that doesn't have a cart. Joe Burrow had to walk to the locker room because they don't have a cart. Anyways, but, even the Eagles might get a call about Tanner McKee. So something to keep in mind. I think this is a show me game for Jake Browning. A lot of pressure on him. I like Minnesota -2.5. I think Carson Wentz, he's got more options, more weapons than Cincinnati does. And I also really do like Brian Flores. You put Brian Flores against a backup quarterback that doesn't get a whole lot of time with first team overall in the offseason, he's going to confuse you heavily. Yeah. I really do like Minnesota in this one. I also do like the under. I think we are staying well under. This is kind of like what you said, 2 weeks ago, we were going, woo, we might see some fireworks here now. Oh, and one other thing I do want to say about Minnesota, I'm not going to sit here and pretend that I have actual sources, but I listen to people who allegedly have sources. There's some talk that this is more of a soft benching for JJ McCarthy than an actual injury. Something to keep in mind, JJ McCarthy has played 8 quarters. He has looked lost in 7 of them. Now, He looked amazing in 1 of them. I get it. But he looked, for the first 3 quarters of the Bears game and the entirety of the Falcons game, he looked like a deer in headlights. He wanted to be anywhere but on that field at that moment. So just something to think about, but we are getting Carson Wentz regardless. And you know what? We all should just enjoy it because we don't know how many more Carson Wentz games we have, damn it. Kind of tongue in cheek, but I don't know. I love Carson Wentz. I will fight for that man until the day I die, but also a really good guy as well. Just throwing that out there as well. All right. Stop stumping for Carson Wentz. Anyways, moving on to these are going to be the other games that will be on the list. If we have any thoughts, we will bring them out, but starting in the NFC South, it's going to be the Atlanta Falcons, 5.5 point favorites going to Carolina to face the Panthers. I didn't put the money line on that one. I don't know why I put the plus number on that. Anyways, Green Bay is going to be -7 as they head to Cleveland. Goodness gracious, that line needs to be higher. But anyways, the Packers 7-point favorites as they go on the road to face the Browns. -415 on the money line, plus 310 for Cleveland. The over-under there is 42. Houston +110. They are heading to Jacksonville to face the Jaguars. Jags are going to be -1.5 point favorites, and the -130 on the money line, over under 43.5. Indy, Daniel Jones. Wow. We're getting ready for a Daniel Jones MVP run. Maybe. But they are going to be 4-point favorites as they head to Tennessee to face the Titans. Indy is going to be -195 on the money line. Tennessee +170. 43.5 over under. The Jets +255 on the money line as they head to Tampa Bay, and Baker Mayfield 6.5 point favorites, -310 on the money line, 44.5. Pittsburgh 2-point favorites as they head to Foxborough to face the Patriots. 44.5 is your over under there. -135 for Pittsburgh on the money line, +115 for the Pats. And finally, shout out to Coach. Again, hopefully you're still not watching this team, but the Saints +290 on the money line. They head across country to face the Seahawks. The Hawks are going to be 7-point favorites, -380 on the money line, and 41.5 on the over under. Raider Jim, any thoughts on those?
For all those other games that you just talked about, the one that I did want to make a statement about, and that is that second to the last one, Pittsburgh -2 going into New England. Let me tell you, New England's going to win this game. Not only are they going to cover, they're going to win this game. Take the money line on them if you would like. I think they're going to go ahead and take care of business. Pittsburgh, they are not the defensive roughhouse guys that they used to be the last couple of years. They're giving up points, and unfortunately, what goes along with that is their offense isn't producing. You would think they have the oldest guy in the they do have the oldest guy in the center. My bad. But seriously, Pittsburgh's not putting out offensively. The differential between points, 4 points against, not Pittsburgh-like at all. So again, they're going to go into Foxborough on Sunday, and it's going to end up being a real shock for Pittsburgh when they have to get back on the plane and go home and have another defeat under their belts.
Yeah, I'm still surprised Aaron Rodgers just didn't retire after the Jets game. That was pretty much the only thing I got right from week 1, was that Aaron Rodgers is going to have his best game of the season against the Jets. The one thing about the Steelers that jumps out to me is they've always been a well-coached team. They've always been mentally strong. They don't make stupid mistakes. They lost last week because a return man just thought, I could just let the ball sit in the goal line and they'll call it a touchback. That's not the way it works. And now, granted, when I saw it, I went, oh, wow, they must have changed that rule. Because again, I figure, okay, the Steelers, they're well coached. They know how to do all this, blah, blah, blah. But that was a bit of a concern. The other game that I did want to just bring up, Houston, I should just say the team, CJ Stroud, it seems like play to play. I go from, okay, CJ Stroud figured it out to, he doesn't know what's going on. I mean, right. He is flip a coin. I think there's still something there, but last year concerned me, and I think Houston might have a little bit of a problem. All right, I promise, last pun. But the AFC South has always kind of been just such a cesspool of mediocrity. I don't know if that's the case with Danny Dimes and Indy. We might need to get into double digits wins to win this division this year, which normally doesn't happen. So we'll see. I think that's going to be a real interesting one. For the record, though, I do like Houston in that one. I think Jacksonville's in trouble. I think there is some major issues going on with quarterback and head coach there. But I do like Travis Etienne. He had a really, really good start to the year, but it's going to be really, really a great weekend of football, and I think we're going to get a little bit of a better idea of how this painting is going to end up. But Raider Jim, wrapping things up, your final thoughts for this episode of the NFL Weekly.
Final thoughts today, like you say, I think at the end of week 3, we're going to have a better idea of how everybody's going to really play from here on out. I am going to pay close attention to injuries and things like that. It just seems like the preseason schedules, extended games, or extended seasons, travel back and forth across the pond and all. I really think that's taking a toll somewhere along the way. All those variables have to be making an impact, and just be interesting to see what happens midway through the season, how many people are still healthy and still competing, and see if we have any front runners on, is there a team that's going to just run away with it? Or is everybody just is the pack going to come up and everybody's just going to be middle of the road? It will be interesting to see. Outside of that, that's about all I have to say.
Yeah, my final thoughts, I am going to call out the Kansas City Chiefs. And it's not because of anything that was done during the game on the field. Last week before the Eagles-Chiefs game, the Chiefs came out for their warm-ups, and not everyone, but a good majority of Chiefs players had shirts that said free 4. And if you're not aware, 4 is Rashee Rice. And if you're confused and wondering, oh my gosh, why is Rashee Rice being improperly imprisoned? And why haven't I heard about this? Well, it's because that's not actually the case. So when they say free 4, what they want is a person that was driving 120 miles an hour in his Lambo on the freeway, who crashed into multiple cars, caused multiple injuries. Thank goodness there were no deaths. There were children injured. And the cherry on top is he fled the scene. And he got a 6-game suspension. Even the judge was questioning how remorseful this man was. Now, look, I'm not going to break any news. If you have a lot of money in this country, you can get away with a lot. A 6-game suspension is borderline laughable. All of us would have been fired without cause or without pay, like, period. It would have been the end of it. Go get out of here. But he gets a 6-game suspension, and the Chiefs have the audacity to come out and pretend like there is some oppression going on. I'd rather you wear a free Colin Kaepernick shirt. It's ridiculous to me. I don't think the Chiefs have any self-awareness. I'm a huge football fan. I love football. If you mess up in the real world, you need to pay the consequences. And unfortunately, just a few years ago, we saw consequences be paid. So that really rubbed me the wrong way. And I would say that if it was the Eagles, I would say that if it was the Raiders, I would say that if it was anyone. I think that was a ridiculous thing to do. And honestly, I think the NFL should get involved because, again, that's just a terrible look. It's a terrible look for a sport that tries to, we're cleaning up our image. Well, sure doesn't look like it to me. But with that being said, I'll put my soapbox away. Don't worry, it'll be back out next week, I'm sure. But with that being said, thank you all so much for listening to this episode of the NFL Weekly, presented by the First Off the Bench Podcast Network. Everyone comes off the bench. We are First. It is time for you all to go wash your hands, and please stop hating everybody. Have a great week. We'll talk to you all very soon. Take care.
Peace out.